Shawn Melland and Colton Dombrowski.
What's
up, gents? How we doing?
Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So why don't you just start by saying, like, why are you in Columbia, South Carolina?
Well, aside from coming to visit you, yeah, we're down here for Summer Strong, which is an event that Bert and Sorinex put on.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, it's how to even describe it. Basically, the strongest people and
in the
smartest world. People about being strong on the planet all get together to kind of have a lifting party and educational thing, and so we're down here for that. Yeah.
Is that why Colton's all like vascular and everything?
Yeah,
right
we worked
now?
out for about 5 or 6 hours this morning. So
yeah,
still carrying a solid pump back there.
Did you basically not drink water for the last 3 days so that you could be jacked on camera?
Yeah, no water, no food, nothing. I'm just rolling in pumped up, baby.
He didn't even know he was going to be on here. Neither did you.
I didn't know either. I'd have him mic'd. So
we're rolling together.
He's gonna sound like he's the guy in the cave.
That's all right.
That's so good. If you have something really important to say, just lean over and say it in his ear.
Just whisper it into my ear and I'll relay.
Yeah, that's right. It sounds like based on your Instagram account, there's probably like a lot of whispering going on since you're hunting together all the time anyway.
We're used to whispering.
You're used to whispering.
Yeah.
My wife always makes that joke when I'm like watching somebody's video or whatever. She's like, "Good Lord, another person whispering in the woods." She's like, "How many of those do you have to like watch?"
Yeah, but are you also like whispering to your wife when you're watching the video just because you're like into it? You're like, "Hey, honey, be quiet."
It'll be sometimes I'll like not even pay attention to it, and I'll like just because the video's whispering and I've got my headphones in, I'll do the same thing. And she's like, "You're in the living room."
Yeah, chill out.
She's like, "You don't really need to whisper right now." So,
oh, that's awesome.
So what are y'all gonna do at Summer Strong this weekend? What's going on there?
Yeah, we're just gonna try to learn as much as possible and hopefully do some teaching ourselves, some knowledge transfer, some knowledge exchange with everybody there. And I mean, we're obviously really big into bow hunting, and we train really hard for doing that. And previous to that, athletic career and stuff like that. So just trying to meet with a whole bunch of people that we can relate to and talk about how to apply all that knowledge and all that wisdom into what we're doing. To try to make ourselves better. So that's basically it, man. Just have a good time.
Why don't you do the basics on the background, just because a lot of my people are East Coast guys, that are sitting up in trees all the time, so they may not be paying as much attention to all you stalkers out there in Montana. Just a quick rundown on your background.
As far as
everything, like where you played football, kind of that whole...
So I grew up in a very small town in North Dakota, western North Dakota. Pretty much middle of nowhere, unrecruited out of high school. Was a pretty good athlete out of high school, but definitely a late bloomer. But still just, basically unrecruited. Got one offer from a NAIA school called University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Okay.
After I went there, after my freshman year, I redshirted. We moved up to Division II. So played there for the entirety of my football career, and then post college had a little shot in the league with the Niners. Then bounced out of there back into the IFL for a little bit as a way to try to get back in with the NFL again, and then the lockout hit in 2011. Lockout hit and broke my leg the same day. Kind of took that as a sign from above and started moving on to bow hunting. So that's kind of the quick rundown. So we moved out to Montana shortly after that and started chasing big bulls.
NFL is a tough game, man.
Yeah.
That's a tough, like, I could barely make the college world happen, but I've had I had a lot of guys that I coached play in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And some of them are studs and get drafted in the first couple of rounds, but most of them are going in on free agent deals, late round, trying to make the team.
Yeah,
and that's
it's a tough road, man. And it's
tough.
It's a tough road, and it's a small window of opportunity, especially coming the long route that I took coming from a Division II school that had never had a player go to the NFL before.
Yeah, I was going to say, we used to play North Dakota State.
Yeah,
that was our big out of conference game.
Mm-hmm.
We'd play them either in the regular season or it seems like we'd always butt up against them in the playoffs, because at the time that I was at Grand Valley, we weren't winning national championships yet. We were going to the playoffs. North Dakota State was the one winning all the Division II national championships.
Yeah, and Grand Valley ended up getting to be a pretty strong program.
They ended up winning 5 national championships.
Yeah.
in the late '90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, they were good when I was in college. I remember that.
Go Lakers!
Yeah, right, man.
That's the weirdest mascot. It's like a guy in like a slick back, rain jacket with the big Laker, like the rain hat on.
Nice.
Like the guy that used to be on the what do they call those big shipping, those big freighter ships on the Great Lakes. That's kind of what the mascot was.
Nice.
So you did that game, and then how do we get into elk hunting?
Yeah, basically just when I got done playing football, like for me, like internally, it was like I was pretty pissed off because I still felt that I had like my best years of playing ball ahead of me, but as I said before, like that window, once it closes, you can't just like show up to camp every year and like it's just not how it works. And so
you can't pry that open, man.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was over, and like I really didn't want it to be. So wrestling with that, how to deal with that and how to process that internally, like I knew that I needed an outlet for all that energy and all that passion that I had, or things could get pretty dark. And
now, were you did you do a lot of hunting already? Like,
yeah,
was that a thing that you did in the off season that you were kind of already dialed into?
Yeah, so I grew up hunting. I grew up with a bow in my hands, so definitely had that background. But really, kind of like step away from it while you're playing football because you're so focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
But so it was definitely something that was very natural to transition back to. And the first year out of ball, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like try really hard at this and try to kill a really big whitetail. Still was living in North Dakota. There's some good deer there, and had some good, growing up where I grew up. I mean, all my friends are ranchers and stuff, so it's like I had a lot of options on places to go. And
Dakotas have good. They've got good deer populations. Good,
yeah,
like big deer, right?
Yeah,
I've never hunted whitetail.
They're huge, like body wise, like big, kind of that Canadian breed, right? They're big, and it's just like anywhere else. I mean, age is kind of the thing. You need age to get the big ones, but so they're definitely around. It's not like it's not like some of these powerhouse Midwest states that just crank out like booners all the time, but like there's definitely some.
It's not Kansas and Iowa and Illinois.
Yeah, there's definitely some big deer.
How do you hunt them there? You tree hunt them, or are they more
different?
Like...
Yeah, so I do a lot of tree stand hunting there for whitetail, but then the mule deer is all spot and stock. That year I was targeting whitetail, so it was all tree stand stuff and hanging cameras and just trying to pattern bucks, and ended up killing just an absolute giant that first year. I mean, it's one of the biggest deer ever taken with a bow in that state.
How big was it?
It was like 189 and change. Big non-typical triple main beams on one side, super heavy, just a stud. And honestly, it was like it wasn't like that much of a challenge, really. Like I focused in on it, and like it worked out. Like just it was almost like when I got done with it, I thought it wasn't like enough of a challenge, and I would learn later on that it's just kind of part of who I am. Like, so I needed to move on to something bigger, and so that was kind of where elk came in. And my wife is from Montana, so
were you married already?
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, we were married, kids, like everything, and so yeah, we kind of just hatched a plan to go west. And
how did she like? She was just like, okay, let's go, or was there some?
It was kind of like
some convincing that had to occur.
No, there was no convincing. I mean, I'm not going to say that I made it her idea, but it was kind of her idea, and I was very supportive of that idea. And then was it
because you were insufferable if you weren't going out there, or what?
Yeah, I don't think so. And she didn't even, to be fair. I mean, like she did not realize how like crazy I was going to go into the elk stuff.
Or she may not have said yes.
She knew like that I needed to do something, but like she was, I mean, we both wanted to go to Montana. It was, I mean, beautiful place, great place to raise a family. Like, I mean,
where are you, Bozeman?
Bozeman. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful. So
how big is that?
I don't know. Like maybe is it 100,000 in the greater valley, like Bozeman, Belgrade? maybe 100,000 tops.
Okay.
It's blown up like a lot. I've been there for 10 years now. It's gotten a lot bigger.
There's a lot of like West Coasters moving in there, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of both coasts.
Yeah. We've got a ton of that going on down here. New Jersey, New York, like all these northeastern states. The influx is real.
Yeah, big time.
So your wife is good. You moved to Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
What year is that?
Let's see, 2013, summer of 2013, we moved to Bozeman.
So 2013, you moved to Bozeman. You're like, I'm going to start chasing big bulls.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Had you ever elk hunted before?
No.
All right. So tell me what that's like. Like you go out there, you've never elk hunted, but this is what I'm going to do, which I get. Like I can relate to this, right? Because I said, I coached football my whole life. I had never bow hunted in my life 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I sat down and had lunch with Bert one day because we had a mutual friend, and I was like, he's an interesting guy. I'd like to meet him. I walked away from that lunch going, I'm going to learn how to bow hunt.
Yeah.
And I literally spent the next 9 months figuring it out, and then last fall was my first fall.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's a lot. I mean, and I didn't just want to hunt elk. Like I kind of had an idea when I went out there. I just wanted to, I wanted to go chase the biggest bulls in the world and kill them. And
where does that come from? Like, was that, does that come from not getting to where you wanted to be in football? Like, was that like, is that like your normal personality all the time? Or is that like, hey, I didn't get here as far as I wanted to go. I got something to prove. Like, I'm going to go be a giant killer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, there was definitely a huge piece of that was like just me being pissed off and wanting to just like prove something. That was a huge part of it. But then
been there.
Once I started killing, like once I started doing it and like just smashing one giant after another, I realized that like that's really just kind of like, that's just kind of who I am. Like it's not really about, I had to figure out through all that work and time and accomplishing all those things that like really actually never was about the giants. It was just about like me as a human being having something daily to just pursue at the highest level. Like that's what I really wanted. Like I hate having anxiety. And to me, like anxiety is when you're leaving something on the table, when you're leaving potential on the table, and I hate anxiety. So I try not to ever leave potential on the table. So like that was it. Just give me something to work towards every day.
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody put it that way, that anxiety is like leaving something on the table. But I do think there's a lot of validity to that. You know, I think a lot of people's anxiety focuses around things they can't control.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense.
Doubt.
If you're leaving something on the table that you're like, I should be doing that.
That I can do something about.
Like I totally get that. All right. So you slide into Bozeman. You've never hunted elk before. How does that look? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
what was
like
your first step?
I mean, you just have to start learning. Like I was able to find a really good mentor out of the gate, which helped a lot. Somebody who was extremely successful. He was already doing it, been doing it for a long time.
Where did you find him?
Just in Bozeman. I'd reached out.
You just met each other somewhere? Or
yeah, I'd actually reached out. So there was a company called Kuyu. The guy who started it's named Jason Hairston, and he
you just reached out to Kuyu and like, hey, what's up, Kuyu?
Well, yeah, actually, they were just starting. Like they were in there when
they were 2010. Was that when they started?
Somewhere around there, because I think I reached out to Jason in like 2012. So they were really just kind of getting going, and like I was just finding out about them, and I just found out about like this whole like I didn't even know like the backpack hunting thing was a thing. And like here's this company, and Jason's background was like pretty similar to mine. Went to a small college, played outside linebacker, got into hunting, and I'm like, okay, like
we can relate.
I can relate to this guy. Then I reached out to him through like Kuyu's like just their general like website email, and I just like wrote Jason a letter,
and he like reached back out to you.
No, so another guy did named Brendan Burns, who just happened to be like one of the best elk hunters on the planet.
Okay.
And he was like, hey man, like, and so we started talking about elk hunting, and we moved to Bozeman. We started shooting bows together, and he was able to mentor me. I asked him a million questions. And he would never like,
he's the one that runs Kuyu now, right?
He's like the chief hunting officer, I believe, which is a title that he invented, which is
good. I like that title.
Good for him. Yeah.
If anybody out there is listening, I would love to be hired at that title.
Yeah, I think it's probably the greatest job in the world.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
But I ended up meeting Jason for a while before he passed. and becoming friends with him as well. But they were just what they were doing, like, and like kind of had found out about Cam Hanes around the same time, which was like this interesting thing about this guy who was like using, backcountry bow hunting as motivation to train. And I'm like, okay, like, so I'm starting to put some pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing for me right away was like the huge hurdle was, really figuring out elk. Like, I had never hunted them before, had never hunted in Montana before. So I'm like, okay, where do all these things live? Like, where are the biggest ones?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get the tags? How do I, find access? Like, so just really starting to, like, at a very granular level, breaking down like every little piece of that.
There's so much parallel to that, to like the last year and a half of my life with, it's just same thing. Like, you were a hunter, but you had to go learn how to elk hunt. I wasn't a hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still, still have diapers on, but that's what I did that first, 9 months before last fall.
Yeah. But, and what you'll find and
crazy.
what you're already finding and what you'll find over and over again with hunting and with a lot of stuff, it's like the same exact stuff that made you a successful football coach,
Mm-hmm.
like that, like studying your opponent, preparing, like all the stuff that you do that made you a good football coach. Like, that's exact. It's just a different thing, but it's kind of the same. It's the same structure, right? So,
and I think I heard you talk about this before, but don't you think that's something that, like, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of people talk. I don't hear a lot of people talk about how much time they spend on studying the biology of what they're hunting,
mm-hmm.
right? Which I've heard you talk about.
Yeah, it's a big component.
And I don't know if that's just something that people don't talk about when they get on a podcast, but
mm-hmm.
it seems like you said, studying your opponent, right? It's you can get lost in the gear and all that kind of stuff, but if you're not studying, what you're actually going after, you're missing the whole thing.
Well, yeah, you see so many guys that, like, they're in great shape, they can shoot their bow like crazy, they have all the best gear, and they plan this, like, they come from out here and they plan this big 10-day trip out west, and they don't have a clue how an elk behaves.
Yeah.
Like, they don't, you have to understand the behavior of the animal that you're hunting, just no different than when we were playing ball. You have to understand, like, this, this offense likes to do this in this situation. Like, this elk likes to do this time of year. Like, it's kind of like really, really crosses over that way for me in my mind, like the way it works. So
how did you learn that? Like, did you learn that from your mentor, or how did you study that and learn elk behavior?
Yeah, everything. Mentors, talking to biologists. Like, this is the thing, like, a lot of people, like, now it's kind of second nature for me, but like you can call, and it's kind of hard to get a hold of them sometimes, but you can call, like, every state has biologists that are dedicated to, like, every different species and different areas, even like down to, like, pretty specific. Like, I remember emailing one time and asking like, hey, I'm going to hunt like this drainage, like, name the drainage, and said, and the interesting part about that area was it was two units, and the drainage split the unit. So my tag would only be good for one side.
Okay.
And I remember emailing the guy and being like, hey, like, is there going to be like a 360 plus type category age class type bulls on this side of the drainage ever? And he emailed me back and he's like, yeah, man, they're on both sides of the drainage. So I'm like, okay, boom, that's enough. That's all I needed to hear. Like,
I just need to know that
they're in
that
there.
I should go in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's worth investigating. And then on the front end, like, the biggest thing for me was time up front. Like, to become an expert at anything, like, it's going to take a lot of time. And I spent, like, a ridiculous amount of time just out looking, just watching elk, all times a year, not just like summer, fall, winter, in the kind of the transition from winter to spring, like, just really learning and studying the animal and how they behave and how they transition. Elk move a lot. They're really nomadic.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a lot of people get kind of tossed around with that, because, like, they'll be like, man, there's all these elk that are right here that we saw, so we're going to go hunt them there. I'm like, when did you see them?
They were here in the winter, and
like,
the spring,
yeah, you saw them on their winter range.
Yeah.
Like, that's not where they rut. Or you saw them in the summer and, like, then they're gone. It's like, okay, like, they move. You have to understand the animal. So spent just a ton of time.
So do you
breaking all that
basically
down.
figure out where they're rutting? Like, is that kind of it's like, okay, not as much attention to where they are in the spring and more attention to, like, how do you scout them in the summer to hunt them in the fall?
Yeah. So one thing you have to understand about, like, so if we're talking about archery hunting, like, most of the archery seasons are in the rut, and the Montana archery season covers, like, the entire rut. So in the rut, like, just for, like, a visual, I mean, the rut is like, it's like the prom. Okay. That's the dance, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody shows up to the dance. Like that's all the big bulls in that area. Like they're going to go to the same place every year.
But they're not rutting the whole month, are they? Are they rutting different areas?
Kinda, there's
like
phases.
Certain areas.
There's phases of it. There's like, basically how it works is like the end of the summer, like once they rub their velvet off, as soon as they scratch their velvet off, I'll back up a little bit. So in the summer, when they're growing and they're blowing up and they're full velvet, they're all bachelor's buddies hanging together.
Yeah, just like deer.
So you see like deer. So you see all the bulls hanging together. About mid-August, as soon as they start scratching the velvet off and the testosterone starts going up, they start breaking up. And the big bulls really just, they don't disappear. They go somewhere, but they usually go kind of off on their own. And they're usually not too far from where the cows are, but they're not really in the mix usually either.
So just like deer. I mean, big
very
bucks
similar.
do the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
no. Yep.
The little dummies, bounce around. You can see them all day long. But the big ones got their little hidey holes, and they know where to go until it's time to go to the dance.
Yep, exactly. So it's really more about like the cows and the cows feeling secure. So like the cow security is like a huge thing. So if you find a place where cows are comfortable living during the rut, like there's a good chance there's going to be like a big rut party there, because like they're not getting like messed with all the time, and they will deal with some pressure, and they'll rut in high pressure areas too. But like for what I'm looking for, I'm trying to find like really undisturbed populations of elk that aren't getting hunted, so the bulls are not getting killed. So like that's how they're getting big, right? But in general, like,
do the cows move as much as the bulls do?
No, not really.
Yeah.
In general, not really. And a lot of times cows will just park in the same spot all year if they're secure. So like
that's
cows really, that's like a huge thing to look for. Like if they're not getting messed with a bunch, like that's probably a really good area.
So how do you like in an area with 100,000 people? How do you find an area that's not getting hunted that much?
Well, I mean, it seems like it's getting harder because there's so much information out there now.
Yeah.
But I mean, the West in general, the Rocky Mountain West in general, is a vast place.
It's just huge.
And there's tons of area that gets very low pressure, little to no pressure. I mean, so yeah, you have to search for those places. And just try to find, there's some certain criterias that I've used, like basically like access in general, right? So there's limiting factors to access, right? So private property is a big one, right? If there's a big private ranch that doesn't let anybody hunt, or it's leased by an outfitter. So, they're not letting public hunters in. So it's pretty controlled. Usually like an area like that, okay, there's very limited access to that area, but is there public land around it, or that like interjects in with the private? So like you're looking at a bunch of that stuff.
So not necessarily even trying to get somebody to let you hunt on their land, but trying to get somebody to let you use their land as access to get to a piece of public that somebody else can't get to.
All the above, really.
Yeah.
Like any limited access is like a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about private and public. It's also like there, geologically or topographically, like, if there's a, steep mountain range and it's really hard to get into this one bowl from this one side, and then the other side's all private, so you can't get in from that side. So like the actual good hunting part of it is public land, but like, how do you get there?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I'm going to be a mountain climber now, so I can get into this place. Right.
Yeah.
So there's rivers, there's all kinds of, even like just road systems. So there's all kinds of like barriers, anything that would make it hard for the general public to get to, whether it's private access, some sort of challenging terrain feature, anything like that you look for that could make it harder for the general public to access. Generally, if there's an elk population in there, if they have, good feed and good habitat, like there's a pretty good chance that there's probably going to be some more significant age class, which is what you're looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I've started doing down here is I've started hunting swamps.
Yeah.
Because people don't like going into them. We've
Exactly.
got a lot of snakes, cottonmouths,
Yeah.
rattlesnakes. They love the swamps.
Yeah. Who the hell wants to go in there? That's
and they're
probably where some
nasty.
big bucks are, right?
And the mosquitoes are freaking ridiculous in the swamp. So like people just usually don't like them.
Yeah.
But that's but you're right. Like
we have that same situation with grizzly bears.
Yeah.
People do not like the G bears, and we're like, I mean, we respect them.
Rattlesnakes and scorpions.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the G bears are definitely not something to mess with, and like we have a ton of respect for them, but just being educated on them and being aware and having a healthy respect for them. But I mean, we sleep with the G bears all the time, and can be an advantage.
So for the people who freak out about that, what are the things that most people don't know that you need to know about that to feel more comfortable hunting in grizzly bear country?
I don't know. I mean,
just in terms of their, the way that they, I guess, the way they function.
Yeah, the way they function. I mean, for the most part, they really don't want anything to do with you. I mean, they don't. There's certainly situations where you could find yourself in trouble, but that comes back to just your preparation too.
Right.
Like, I mean, if you practice with your, if you shoot, like as a general rule, 1,000 feet per second, 200 grain hard cast on a 10 millimeter, like you have to have a heavy handgun to penetrate a grizzly bear skull. Like that's just in general, knowing some of that stuff and being prepared, and then being good with your weapon. So like in the event that you had to have that situation, you'd be prepared for it. It's something that you've practiced a bunch. Like thankfully that situation has not happened, but it is something that you train for and you prepare for, so that if it does happen, you feel confident that you'd be able to defend yourself in that situation. But in general, like most of the grizzly bears we see, I mean, they hightail it the other way.
Are you carrying bear spray too, or are you just carrying a firearm?
I don't, and I'm not recommending that to anybody. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
I just would rather have a gun in my hand.
Well, I think what you said a minute ago was really true. Is like, if you're going to carry a firearm, you better know how to use it. You better train with it.
Yeah.
It's not just something you throw on your hip and walk out in the woods with. Like if you're that guy, then just carry the bear spray. Like you got a better chance of putting a big wide cone out there. And
if you're that guy, just don't go in grizzly country. Just do yourself a favor. But then also just being aware, like if you come up on a kill, whether it's a, cow, elk, or a cattle, if you find a kill, like, you're not.
You're in the.
Do not be there.
You're on the X.
Yeah, or a sow with cubs. Like if you get in a situation where you're between a sow and cubs, like it could be pretty dicey. Like we've come on. We've definitely been in a couple situations. I mean, one sow with some cubs she was pretty interesting, and then there was one that we came upon an elk that had been poached. Just a cow elk, like somebody just like basically drove by and shot it, is what it looked like, and just left it there.
What's the purpose of that?
No, I don't know.
Being
but
an idiot.
yeah, being dumb. But a couple days later, the whole elk was gone, and there was just a giant bloody trail down into the willows where the grizzly had drug it down there to eat on. And then like 5 days after that, I was by myself in those willows stalking a bull, and I was like, this is probably not the best choice, but the elk were like, they were going off bugling, and I remember like I kept telling myself like, okay, if they're in here, it's okay. So like that's how I kept going. But honestly, like probably the fear of a grizzly bear exploding out of the willows and ripping my face off probably prevented me from killing that bull, because I was moving so slow and so cautious. Whereas like normally if that wasn't the scenario, I would have moved way fast through those willows and closed the distance and killed them. But just having that healthy respect and fear, I was moving pretty cautiously and never ended up getting there on that time. But so any situation like that can prevent people from going after them, and that's kind of what we look for.
Yeah. So you've got some good spots, obviously. So you're studying elk behavior. You're kind of going out and doing a lot of scouting. Did you kill in the first season out there?
So the first year I was there, I had the non-resident general tag.
Okay.
Just because we just moved. It takes so long to become a resident, and I hit it pretty hard. Actually, I really big bull that year. Learned a great lesson. It was like late in September. Put a great stock on him. Kind of intercepted the herd bull with his herd. Had him at 53 yards. And I thought he was like way closer. I didn't take the time to range him, shot right underneath him, missed him, went back and ranged it. I think I shot him for like 35 and he was 53, just
so you're just eyeballing it.
Yeah. Just didn't take the time, didn't know, so, and I learned a lot about elk, a lot about kind of hunting pressure. The general tag is a tough tag. Like anybody in Montana can just go buy it over the counter if they're a resident, and like you have the most non-resident hunters. I was hunting all public land. So it's basically like the most challenging elk hunt that you can do. That was my first one, and I had the opportunity to kill a really big bull that year. I just missed them. So I knew I was doing something right. And then the next year, my first year as a resident, 2014, I arrowed
that was the only arrow you let fly that season, right?
Yep. Yeah. Just the one. And but learned a ton, and then had a plan going into the next year as a resident where like I'm going to hunt a different area, a better tag, which it was still basically over the counter tag as a resident, archer tag. Anyway, yeah, had a lot better plan and a year of experience under my belt and a lot more knowledge about elk. And then, yeah, that was kind of the first year, 2014, ended up arrowing a giant. And
so when you started in the off season, when you started looking at where you wanted to hunt, like topographically, just in terms of the terrain, what were you looking for? Like you got a year under your belt. Now you're like, okay, I know some things. What kind of terrain were you looking to hunt?
Interesting question. I actually did not look at terrain at all.
Just access?
I just looked at elk populations and how many of them were dying. Like all I wanted to know was how many elk are in a place, or if elk were in an area. Okay. And then if so, how many of them are getting killed? How many of the bulls are getting killed?
And how were you accessing that back then? Because you can do that now with Onyx, but back then.
Yeah, so back then.
With Go Hunt.
I read the cover to cover. I read the Montana FWP elk management plan that is written by their biologists, and it was on their website. So I read it cover to cover. I read about and I didn't just read it like cover to cover. That was my manual.
That was your playbook.
Yep, that was my playbook.
Studying the new playbook.
So I learned, and like now, like basically we joke all the time. Like I'm basically Rain Man with elk in Montana. Like you could anywhere in the state, it's kind of like a encyclopedia of knowledge that I have now. But like that's kind of the first initial the elk management plan breakdown literally breaks down every unit, subunit in the entire state, how many elk are in each, how many elk tags they have, like the general bull harvest, like tons of information to dig into. And so using that, I was able to identify a few areas that I thought. One thing I wanted to look for was emerging elk populations. I wanted like new populations. Just kind of had a theory that like new and growing populations that with low harvest, we're going to have bigger bulls.
Is that a data set now that people can find like on Go Hunter? Do they still have to go to us? Like I know they can find, how many were killed and all that kind of stuff, how many were harvested, but do they have that emerging elk data, or is that something you have to go to the state for in different states for?
Yeah, so I don't know that they do.
I don't think I've seen it. That's why I asked.
I don't know if they do or don't actually. And I actually, when Go Hunt first came out, I actually wrote most of the unit breakdowns in Montana for Go Hunt.
Oh, really?
So like, there's a pretty extensive.
Did you get paid for that, or was that just like were you trying to just kind of get into the industry a little?
Yeah, no, I wasn't at all. Actually, I just kind of knew one of the guys. He asked me if I'd be interested in doing it, and they paid me for it, and so wrote a bunch of those for him, which I enjoyed too, because it was almost like more reps for me to go over it again.
That's right.
And so I did that early on. I think that was like 2015.
It's a lot of work.
Or so. Yeah.
Especially back then, the data was probably a lot harder to come by.
Yeah, I literally wrote them all out on like a Word program and just sent them into them. It was crazy. But yeah, no, just just learning all that and kind of broke it down that way, not worried about terrain, and then
so
that's kind of like
studies.
Yeah, and that's kind of where like a lot of people, like when they look at my bulls and like the pictures, and they're like, I'm killing all these bulls like out in these like desert, flat, prairie areas, and people are like, how the hell did you find elk out there? Well, that's how. Like I didn't look at the terrain. I don't care if there's trees. Like I never worried about any of that. I don't care if I have to sit out there for 10 days in the sun and get my ass kicked and sleep with rattlesnakes. Like if there's going to be a big bull there, that's where I'm going to be.
So it's interesting because I think when people, I'm an East Coaster, so I'll speak for East Coasters, but I think when a lot of people think about Montana, they think about mountains and heavily wooded areas and that kind of stuff. But I think I heard you on a podcast. It sounds like this part of the state where you're in is much flatter. Is that right? I mean, I don't want to say flat, but it's a completely different type of terrain.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a generalization. I mean, I've killed them in like 6 different counties, so all over the state.
So you're going all over the
from
state.
really mountainous country to prairie to high desert to and everything in between. But I think the point is they're kind of. I mean, big bulls are just like big bucks. They are where you find them. They don't. You don't need to look for a pocket of trees or a certain. I mean, yes, is there certain habitat that elk like? Yeah, but you have to remember, like, I mean, elk originate like they're a prairie animal. Like Western civilization pushed them high up into the mountains, and they want to go back to the prairies if they can. If they feel comfortable being out there, the feed's better, the winters are easier. Like they want to go down into the low country where life is easy. Mm-hmm. It's humans who push them up into the mountains, and that's kind of how they've evolved over time. But there's places in all over the West, not just in Montana, where I mean you're going back in time 100 years.
That's interesting though, because I think for people like me, like we think of elk as a mountain species, because that's where they are now. Like you said, it's like I don't even think of them as a prairie species.
Yeah. So,
but the comment that you made before about they are where they are, like that's true, right? I got a buddy of mine who, like, I think it was the biggest buck he ever killed. He figured out it was like there was one big freaking tree in the middle of a field, right? It just stood there by itself, and it had some growth around it, like some thorny raspberries and stuff kind of around it, and that was it. Mm-hmm. But it was just sitting out there by itself, and he had been hunting this buck for 2 years. He could not figure out where he thought like all the normal places. Mm-hmm. And one day he was just like glassing that night, and he saw it slip in like right by this stupid tree in the middle of the field. Like you would never think, and he's like, that's where that sucker lives. Yeah. And that's how he killed it.
Well, and they're individual too. Like
that's what I'm saying. They figured out, man.
Yeah.
If they're big, they figured out how to live.
Yeah. And they have like, I don't know if it's like personality or how like not every big bull, not every big buck is the same. And usually there's something like pretty unique about them is why they've become old. Like they're doing something not the norm.
Right.
Some of them I think are actually like stupid. Like they're like the outcasts, and like they've just been doing this different program for so long that like they just get old and big, right? It's like I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of different examples. Like I've definitely come across big bulls that I thought were like really smart. I'm like really wise. Like holy shit! Like this thing is like cagey smart. Mm-hmm. And I've also hunted some that are like, this thing is just living out here. I don't think he knows, like. He just is out here doing his thing, and he's just found
getting away with it. Nobody's figured out where he is.
Yeah. So they just, they are where you find them. And so I think open up your, don't just like kind of have a closed-minded view that elk are just in the mountains, or they're just in the timber, or like they're just in like these certain situations. And they, like I said, they're really nomadic, and they grow. Their populations can grow really fast if they're not being over harvested. And there's situations all across the West, not necessarily in every state, but there's a lot of situations across the West where, I mean, elk are expanding into new territories all the time. And if you can kind of be on the leading edge of that, which a lot of that you can do through research and some through scouting, you can probably find some success with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's that the point that you made is super interesting, because I think as hunters, a lot of people want to create rules that work for us.
Yeah.
Because then we can create this box and go, okay, this is how we find them, mm-hmm. as opposed to recognizing each one of them is different. Mm-hmm. And if you just want to hunt an area and kill whatever you want to kill, then you look for numbers, right? But if you're trying to, harvest a specific type of animal, mm-hmm. then you're scouting, but you're really not scouting with this preconceived notion of where they are. Yeah. You're scouting like, okay, where could they be based upon, the population growth? Like, just like you said, what would likely put a bigger animal here? Mm-hmm. And then you got to figure out where they are.
Yeah. And another thing a lot of people do is like they tweak the plan to basically, right? Yeah. Like I can give you the criteria. I can slide across the table. Like here's your game plan. This is how you go find a bull and kill it in Montana. Mm-hmm. And if you're not fully committed to that plan, you're going to take it and you're going to be like, well, okay, but it actually would work a little better for me if I did this, and actually be a little easier if I made my camp over here and then I could hike in this way. And like people will start just deviating from the plan, and pretty soon they get so far away from it that they're like not even close to like the actual recipe that's going to be successful. They're just making excuses for themselves to kind of make it easier, and then they end up with no success. It's like, once you find, like, there's pretty simple criteria that I use anyway, but you have to be disciplined in sticking to that criteria, and it's no different than anything else we've ever done, whether it's training or football or anything.
So why don't you give an example of a successful hunt, and kind of just go through the steps and point out the places where an average person would deviate from it, that would derail them.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
Just pick one.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the number one start there. The number one place people fail and where they deviate is really just the commitment, the time commitment to it. Like, if you go in, even in just a single day, if you find a bull and you bed him down in the morning and he goes into a dark timber pocket and you're able to slide up and you get to within 100 yards of where he went in and bedded. Mm-hmm. You got the wind right. Now all you have to do is wait until about 4:30 in the afternoon, which is going to be about 9 hours, until he comes and feeds back out. You keep your wind right the whole time. You sit there, and you just don't mess it up. Do you know how many people will go in to the dark pocket of timber after him because they can't sit there
just
for 9 hours?
Patience to sit there for 9 hours.
Whereas if you just waited and let it play out, and it might not happen for you that day, but if you don't wait, it's not gonna. And that, it kind of goes back to something I learned from another one of my mentors, Ray Alt, who is like one of the most legendary like hunters ever. And we were when he was older in his years, I took him to shoot a cow elk, and on the drive over there, we were talking about bow hunting and about kind of this same stuff. And he told me, there's a time to let it happen and there's a time to make it happen. And, the real successful bow hunters kind of intuitively develop when each time is called for. And so, like, that's kind of the thing. And I think it takes a lot of experience and a lot of messing up to really develop that. But, like, that's archery hunting in general. Is like, there's times to be super, super aggressive, and there's times to be super, super patient, like painstakingly patient. And you have to develop that understanding through experience. Like, you can't just, I think that's probably another thing that derails people is like, to get experience, it takes time. You can't just show up your first hunt and expect to like be this seasoned veteran that knows everything to do. Like, you're going to have to make some mistakes and kind of develop that intuition.
Yeah. No, I lived that last year.
Yeah.
I know. So last year was my first season, and I let 2 arrows go. The first one was barely shooting light in the morning, and it was the rut. It was an area where I knew this buck was coming on a pretty regular basis, and I had got an idea that he kind of rolled through there about every 3 or 4 days. So I sat that same tree like 3 days in a row, and the third day, it was pitch black. I got in there at like 4:30 in the morning, and he came underneath me about 40 minutes before light, and I couldn't see him at all, but I could see his antlers. Like, I could see the lightness of his antlers. Mm-hmm. And he went and he was just like feeding in this little area in front of me, and I was just like waiting for the sun to come up. And I was like waiting for it to come up, and I pulled back 3 times and I couldn't pick him up with my peep sight. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't do it. And he started feeding away, and he was getting close to this big tree that was going to go into the woods, so I knew kind of where he went. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get one, like, I'm going to get a shot or I'm not, right? It was legal light, but I still could hardly see him. So I basically was like, I'm going to pick the white, of his chest and just try to put it, right behind his shoulder in that area. And I'm either going to miss him low or I'm going to hit him in the pump house. And I put it right underneath him. Mm.
Yep.
But my second one was the one up in Illinois. But like you said, you learn from that, right?
This is part of bow hunting. Like, it's hard. That's why we like it.
Yeah, it is. It's hard.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, when you're talking about that. So is there a favorite?
What do you mean?
Like, is there one bull that's like, that was the best hunt I had? Like,
My favorite one's the next one.
that you're always kind of, I was going to say, you're always chasing the next one, but if you look back at the ones you've had, is there one that was, whether it was super challenging, whether it was like really hard to get in there, maybe the pack out was just rough, something that made it like unique and like it stands out above the other ones?
Yeah, no, it's hard. I honestly don't really have a favorite. They were all super hard. They all tested me like a ridiculous amount. I packed them all up by myself. They were all hard in every way. And that's what I love about it. Like, some are, the one that was just on the cover of Eastmans is like, that's one of the most ridiculous bulls you'll ever see. Like just an absolute giant,
That thing's freaking
massive,
enormous.
Old,
what was that, 396?
He's straight 394 and change as a straight 6, but arrowed him out in the middle of the desert, just like,
where was he hiding?
total one-on-one scenario. He literally just went out and found a crevice out in the middle of the desert and laid down in it. And I crawled up on like a coyote and sat in the sun all day and waited for him to get up and shot him. Like it was, and it was cool too. Cause like
tell that story. That sounds like a good one. Tell that story.
It is good. And I'm sure you have a whole different group that are out here, but it was interesting. I was actually hunting a much bigger bull, one that I'd hunted for multiple years and had been close to killing a few times. And I had the night before I had left that bull, basically I was on a ridge and I'd watched my bull that I was after. He was out down feeding and rutting with 70 some cows, and he was like, I thought he was over 430. He was like a mega giant.
Good Lord.
And I had a lot of history with him, and I remember like texting my wife that night when I went to bed in my tent. I'm like, I'm killing him in the morning. Like I knew it was on because just the way they move. The next morning he was going to come back to where I was, and I was going to be waiting for him. Yeah. And light broke the next morning, and I got my glass out there to where I'd left him the night before, and they were all still in the exact same place, and he was gone, and this giant 6 was there, had taken over, had kicked him out.
Oh, really?
Yep, totally ran him off.
The youngster came in. Was this one older, do you think? Or
no, they were both
bigger,
giant, ancient. Yeah. Like they were just built different.
Yeah.
And so he'd run him off, and I'm actually like, and this is how like crazy my mindset is and was about big bulls. Like that big 6, 394 and change is coming at me with his herd of cows, and I'm seriously like,
where's the other one?
I'm not even considering shooting him yet. Like I'm like, do I just let him go? I don't really know. And they came up right below me, all the cows bedded down, and he kind of worked around. It was early in the rut, so like the cows weren't really in heat yet. Mm-hmm. So he was with them, but they weren't really like ready. So he just kind of went around and checked them all, and they weren't really ready. So he just left them, and he just started walking. He just started walking out into the desert by himself. And,
how close are you right now watching all this?
I was like about 100 yards above him.
Okay.
So I was at the point where I could make a move to go kill him, but I was kind of just letting things settle down. Yeah. They were not aware of my presence, like the wind and the thermals were good. Everything was good, so I was just kind of letting it play out to see what was going to happen.
What time of the day is this right now?
This is just like right after sunup.
Okay.
Yep. They'd kind of moved back to bedding pretty early that morning. It was hot. It was going to be really hot that day. It ended up being like in the 90s that day. Okay. So they were getting to bed early, and then he just kind of left them, and he took off walking, and I watched him. I mean, he just walked. I mean, you could see for miles. It's just flat and no trees, nothing. And
that would be a weird. I've just never seen anything like that before.
Most people haven't.
That's got to be a weird sight, just like having everything this wide open expanse and just watching this huge guy walk. Like, where's he going?
Well, and if you can
where's this dude going?
Picture me like sitting on like a bald clay knob in the middle of nowhere, watching this happen, and kind of just like almost like lamenting to myself, like, shit, I'm gonna have to go after this bull now. Like, okay. So, but then he went and he laid down in this like kind of this deep, like dry, like washed out crevice. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting in the same, it's basically just a dry creek bed. Mm-hmm. Like if you just picture like flat as a pancake, prairie, sagebrush, cactus, sand, scoria. and like just a dry washed out creek bed that runs through the middle of it. He was laying in the bottom of it.
How deep was it? 10 feet?
Probably 10 to 15 feet.
Gotcha.
So fairly deep.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
And I got right in the bottom of it, and it's like almost like beach sand in the bottom. So his tracks were like perfectly fresh,
nice and comfy. Good place to go.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And it was cooler down there. It was definitely cooler in the shade. It was great. So I was able to track him in the sand. Like, I mean, I knew because you wonder, you're like, well, did he sneak out like another way or something? But I'm like right on his tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of like little turns and bends and winds in this creek bed. And finally I kind of came around a corner and I saw his antlers. I could see like the tops of his antlers, but not his head. So he couldn't see me either. And so I climbed out. I got out of the dry wash up above him, crawled basically right on top of him. So he was down in the wash and I was at the ledge above him. And he was bedded down in like a hole that he had worn out, and it was like a annual bedding area for him. Like he had washed out the sandstone in there from all the times he'd bedded in there.
Oh wow, so this was his place.
Yeah. So, and like that's kind of a good little like note. Like people wonder when it's early September, like before the rut really gets going, and you don't know where a lot of these great big bulls are. Like they do that a lot. They go off in these kind of weird places where nobody's going to mess with them. They're not far from the herd.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, they're within striking distance. So as soon as those cows start coming into estrus, then they're going to be there.
But that kind of goes back to the point that you made a lot earlier, right? Is if you find out where the cows are, there's a big bull somewhere near.
Absolutely.
If it's close to the rut, because they know where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And again, it's just one of those situations where you kind of you have to be there, to see that happen. But then from there, it was just, waiting for him to stand up, really. So
how do obviously for somebody like y'all who lives out there, you've got the winter and the spring and the summer to scout, just like we do deer around here. But for people like me who don't have that opportunity, what's the opportunity for success on when you go? And I'm not saying percentage wise, but what's the best way to approach something like that? If it's like, okay, I've got a week to 10 days. Like how does somebody do that?
Well, really, like the first thing you need to identify is basically what you're looking to accomplish. Like, what's the goal of your hunt? Like, do you just want to experience elk hunting? Do you want to just kill any elk or a bull? Do you want to kill a 6-point? Do you want to kill a giant? So, like, first of all, establish that, and then work your plan from there. Because I mean, if you just want to come, and I shouldn't say just, because I'm not trying to diminish anything, but like if you want to come kill an elk and like that's your only goal, like you want to come out west, bow hunt elk and be successful, then really you're looking for opportunity, right? So you're looking for multiple opportunities at elk. So accessible land, good populations. You're breaking down more of that criteria and then it kind of like filters down as you kind of go, as you raise your level of whatever your goal is. But like, say if you just wanted to kill like a 6-point bull, I keep saying just, sorry about that. If you want to kill a 6-point bull, come out to Montana.
We know we know that we're behind the curve. Trust me. You don't need to remind me.
Yeah. I just
messing with you.
I honestly though, I think you should look at it like similar, like don't break it down. It takes some of the cues that like we've talked about, like how you break down a population, how you break down pressure, how you break down access. Find the best area that you can, that you think like, okay, I know there's an elk population here. I know there's a huntable elk population here. I know there's some kind of limiting factor to access that I can navigate. So whether you get access, through somebody, or you're just gonna hike a long ways, or you made some calls and you learned something, or you use a company like Land Trust, which is basically like VRBO for hunting property, which Colton works for them. So
you work for Land Trust?
Yeah, good resource.
I didn't know
just
that.
Call Colton.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, and that would be a huge help for a lot of people too. Just using a resource like that. So yeah, start there, and then really just like you have to like you really have to have a plan and then multiple backup plans for your hunt, so that when you get out there, you make a big commitment, make a big trip to come out west for, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, and your first plan, you get there and there's 10 people at the trailhead and it's like a disaster.
Yeah.
Like that happens to people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a backup plan, or maybe you have one backup plan. Like you got to have like a really extensive plan with multiple options, and use just like, I mean, if you're going to invest that much time and money and effort into something, like, man, you got to check every possible box that you can ahead of time to when you get there. Like you're as prepared as you could possibly be. You've called the biologist, you've called landowners, you've talked to hunters there, you've talked to outfitters, you've talked to, guys that go hunt, you've talked to guys at land trust. Like use every possible resource that you can and stack up as much knowledge as you can. I mean, you're building your target plan no different than you build a game plan in football against your opponent, right? Like you want to collect as much data as humanly possible in your favor. And then from there, it's just about going and putting time in.
So do you think from a strategic standpoint, it's better to, like there's all this conversation about building up points and getting these great units or whatever, but do you think from a strategic standpoint, especially for somebody like me, that it's better to find a unit that you think you've got a pretty good chance of drawing on the regular in some of these states and going out there every year and learning that unit really well, as opposed to like always, putting in points and trying to draw something out of a state every 4 or 5 years, you know, and then trying to hunt the unit, I
think it's both. I think you need to get opportunities in opportunity states where you can get tags every year, and you can be like, Colorado's a popular one, right? Yeah. Like there's tons of elk. There's also tons of hunters, but like a place that you could go and hunt elk every year. It doesn't have to be, anywhere. New Mexico, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, wherever. And develop the skill of hunting elk so that in however long, when you draw a better tag, you want to have some experience and some skill built up when you get that tag, right? You don't want your first elk tag to be in like this awesome trophy unit. Yeah. Like that'd be challenging, but if you've got a couple under your belt, and then you get that tag. I think some people do that though. Like some people have that mentality out here. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I'm going to put in all these different states, and I'm going to, draw one of these big units in 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't gone out there and hunted elk, right, and then you launch into one of these units, unless you're going with a guide, what do you know? Yeah. Right. And that could be a good thing too, is go with a guide and learn. Yeah. I applied to New Mexico with a guide. Yeah. That's what I was going to do. I was going to go to New Mexico with a guide, but didn't pull it. Yeah. So the guide draw is better, and like some people don't know that either. Like you have better odds sometimes with a guide. But I would recommend that too. Like there's nothing wrong with going with a guide. Ryan over at Blackhorn? Okay. I didn't know if he and Aaron know each other pretty well, so I didn't know if you knew him since you know Snyder? Aaron? Yeah, Kafara? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I was asking. Okay. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with, it would benefit a lot of people who, if you don't live in an area where you can hunt them a lot and scout them a lot and stuff like that, if your first couple elk trips are guided, your knowledge curve is going to be drastically increased. Or not even necessarily with a guide. If you have a buddy that's out there with some experience, if you can find anybody to hunt with who's done it before, like absolutely do that. Like you're going to help yourself out a lot. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I got a buddy of mine that lives in Montana that's part of this business that I'm. Well, and even doing this, like you're talking with a bunch of guys all the time, and you're learning stuff. Like your curve's getting accelerated too, so that's good. Definitely, yeah. And I talked him into going with me. So, and he's hunted mule deer in the same unit that I'm going into. So in Montana? No, in Colorado. Oh, Colorado. Yeah, I couldn't. I don't. This is my first. But this was my first year applying for all these Western states. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take me a few years to get enough points to hit. To get Montana and Wyoming. It's a whole thing. It's not like hunting deer. Yeah, we were just talking with before we came here. We were talking with Brandon Lilly at Sorinex. Yeah. Is he down here for Summer Strong? Yeah. Okay. He was kind of like, we were talking about that too, about basically the same conversation about applying or buying landowner tags, and there's so much to it all. For somebody who's just getting into it, it can be a lot. So finding somebody to help you navigate that is big. Yeah, I got with
I get one of these services that kind of does it, like you sit down, you put a plan together in the off season. Which states do you want to apply for?
Who did you use for that?
Rolling Bones.
Okay.
I don't know if you know them. I got a buddy of mine who's who runs Ridgeline Athlete. It's,
okay.
He's hunted out west. He's been pretty successful. He lives in Vermont.
Okay.
And he uses them to do all his tag applications.
I'll hook you up with some good resources too.
Oh, that'd
sure.
be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like you said, you can't do it unless you're on the land.
Yeah.
That's half the battle is getting there now.
No,
especially
totally
with the demand out there now.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, people need to understand if you're interested in it at all, get in the game now, because it's not getting any easier as far as the supply and demand side. Like, tags are getting harder and harder to come by every year. Landowner tags are getting more expensive all the time. So like, if you think you wait 5 years, like, it's going to be harder then. So if you're interested,
that's a route that I will definitely talk to you offline about, because the landowner tag thing, like, I don't know anything about that yet.
Yeah.
Like, I've just been doing the regular figuring out how to do the application strategy in all these different states.
It can be a really great workaround.
I bet
if you have the means. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you that would be.
Yep.
Are you going to spend the same amount of money that you would spend with a guide, more or less? What does that usually look like?
Depends on the area and the tag. There's some landowner tags that are like, I mean, very inexpensive relative to going with a guide. There's some that, I mean, you can spend as much as you want on a landowner tag. There's some pretty expensive ones.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
But
I'll spend money, but I have limits,
But there's some good ones out there. I mean, it's definitely a way to work around the draw system. It's a little more expensive, and like I said, it can be as expensive as you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of options there, and it's kind of its own world. So, yeah.
So you said that the two of y'all are hunting partners.
Yep.
But I thought you always hunted alone. So how does that work?
Yeah.
How did y'all meet each other?
We just started hunting together here in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And we still do a lot of. I mean, we hunt together and help each other out. Yeah. Yeah. But we still do a lot of solo hunting as well.
Native Montanan, Colton?
I'm from Colorado.
Okay.
Originally.
You live in Colorado now, or you live in Montana?
No, up in Bozeman.
Okay.
So that's, I moved up there to go to school, Montana State, and that's while I was in school.
On the mic.
While I was in school, started working at a physical therapy and kind of powerlifting gym as a trainer and assistant PT guy. Shawn's wife is a PT.
Okay.
And so that's then how we met. I
Okay.
was playing some Johnson Brothers on the radio one day on my playlist, and
He was like, I like them.
the big cat was like, "Who the hell's playing this?" And I peeked out from behind the corner, not worried if it was a good or a bad thing.
So you actually hunt together, or do you just kind of scout together and do all that and then go solo hunt?
Oh, we definitely hunt together.
Yeah, we've done all that. So scouting back and forth, for both of our careers, we'll be on the road in different areas, and so can send intel back and forth. Hunted together, like same camp, everything. We're rolling together, but then both of us, I mean, we both have careers and lives, and so maybe it's, hey, I'll be out at base camp for 4 days, and then he rolls in 1 day overlap, and then
then you're
roll
out
back
and he's hunting.
Yeah, but it just is really kind of a feedback loop between the two of us where
That's freaking
get
great.
that going.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's half the. We were talking about this before we really started, but to me, that's like half of this thing, right? Is if you talk to, don't forget to grab the mic, whichever one of you guys is going to talk. But to me, that's like half of this thing is the people.
Yeah.
That's for me. Like since I've got, and I don't know what your experience was, but one of my experiences in football was coaching, not playing, but coaching was. You could only get so close to people because everyone was kind of like, where's my next job?
Mm-hmm.
What's my next opportunity? If I kind of tie you in with this guy, especially if you're coaching the same position or whatever, and you get too close to him, then my opportunity may become your opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always like this arm's length thing a little bit in coaching. And I loved the people in football and in coaching, but I didn't love that aspect of it.
Yep.
And the cool thing that I've found with hunting has been not that, right? Obviously, no one's going to see, like, here's where I hunt. Come take my spot.
Right.
Right. But in terms of being willing to help people,
Yeah.
like just the amount of effort that people are willing to give to teach you something or help you or help you learn and shorten the learning curve. Like, there's amazing people in hunting.
Yeah. And it's like, that's kind of why, I did hunt completely by myself for a long time. And yeah, you kind of, like we were talking earlier, like one of the things you miss most about ball is the locker room, and just the camaraderie.
Yep.
And so kind of brought that back with having a hunting partner, but also like being selective with somebody that I'm going to hunt with, like knowing that I have the goals that I do, which are pretty insane. I can't have somebody who's going to slow me down. I'm not going to bring anybody with me who's going to decrease my chances.
Yep.
So like he talked about like the feedback loop. So we have a good partnership in that it can't be selfish. Like, we have to understand each other's goals. We have to respect what each other are doing. And then throughout the effort that we're putting in, we're truly helping each other out.
Yeah.
So that can be unique in hunting too. You mentioned like the arm's length thing with, some of the people in, previous career. Like, it can be like that a lot in hunting too. Like, if trust me, there's plenty of people who want to be like my buddy and my hunting partner, like for very, very selfish reasons. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, they're not like, what are they looking to contribute? Like, one of the first things that really made Colton like, and I become good hunting partners was immediately like he was contributing right away.
Yeah.
Like, he was bringing effort and knowledge to the table. He wasn't just like, hey, take me to your spot and let me just shoot the ones that you don't want to shoot, which, so like, there's definitely a lot of value there.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Well, I mean, I could sit here and do this for 2 hours, but I think the average person is like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. How long have we been going?
Hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Which is great.
Goes by fast. We're talking about,
like I said, I could sit there and talk about this for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But this has all been awesome, man. I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, no problem.
You're an added plus, dude.
Bonus.
I always like to meet another good person. Yeah.
Yep.
So I know you just jumped on social media in the last few months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just real, what was the story behind that? Like, why did it, like, everyone's been on social media forever. What was your reason for not being on it for a while?
Yeah. I just didn't, I viewed it as a distraction, and also like, I just was like really pretty laser focused on what I was wanting to accomplish. And so I just didn't want any distractions. I also didn't want to, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I wanted to go do something. And people who are close to me who know me, like, I definitely, like, Babe Ruth, like, called my shot in 2014. Like, the first bull I killed was 384. Like, I told people close to me I'm going 380 or nothing this year. But I wasn't like,
you got shut out the first year.
Yeah.
Right. So you were like, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah. So, but I didn't want to just like have that out on like social media and stuff and seem like this asshole who's like, I want to like go do it first. So then I basically want to put a decade into doing what I said I was going to do.
That was your challenge, not everybody else.
Yeah. And now I'm ready to like share it, like talk to guys like you. And like another big reason, for our hunting partnership is mentorship. Like, love being able to mentor and help people. And so it's like, that's basically the point of social media now. It's like, okay, like, I feel comfortable now just sharing what I do. I'm not saying that that's what everybody needs to do or anything. Like, this is just what I do. And, if somebody likes it or can learn something from it, then I think that's great.
Yeah. It can be a distraction. You're right. Like, I've had to make myself be more of like a post and ghost guy, not spend a bunch of time looking at other people's stuff, but just like, okay, put up what I'm going to put up and then get off of it. Yeah. Cause you can like, just, 30 minutes went by, and you like, what did you get out of it? But what I think the stuff that I do watch is, which I think I said the first video of yours I saw was the first one you put up, right? It was that like practice video of stalking, which I went out and like, now I use that, which is cool because you're putting something up that, it's not like clickbait or just, hey, come look at me. It's like, okay, this is something that you can actually do to make yourself better.
Yeah. This is like legitimately a tool that any bow hunter who uses it will become better at bow hunting.
And especially for people like me who are on the East Coast and want to go out there, but we're not spotting and stalking deer, in South Carolina and Illinois. Like we're in trees.
Yep. It's a different craft.
How do you prepare for some of that? Which I'm actually going to spend, I'm actually going to try to do a little bit of that in the fall, like in the swamp, just to get better at it.
Yeah.
Just to work on it.
Oh yeah. It's sinking its teeth into you already.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool. So where can people find you on Instagram?
Just Shawn Melland, and then they can also look at we have a community called Bugle Boys, which is basically the bow hunting locker room.
And so is that's the two of you, right?
Yeah.
Will you be accepting new members in the future, or is this a nice?
We will be taking applications. Yeah,
taking applications. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you guys for being here, man. It's been awesome to meet both of you. I'm looking forward to keeping the conversation going. I'm gonna get you. I may have to just get you back on, dude. Maybe you may have to do one. I love this. I just get to know great people. I promise you I'll be picking your brain.
Yeah.
I won't be asking you I won't be asking you where to go, but
happy to help, man.
I'm going to be asking you for just, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, please do.
See if I don't get my ass kicked out there this year.
Yep.
I expect to, though. I've been training my ass off.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm stoked about it.
Just having something to train for, like how important is that in our lives?
Oh, it's, yeah. I mean, I don't even.
Just that part.
Yeah, I don't even know I don't think I ever even told you my whole story, but I've had 3 back surgeries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 3 years ago, I couldn't walk into my driveway. I was shot.
Yeah.
I weighed 70 pounds more than I weigh right now.
Damn.
And I got hooked up with some miracle worker, physical therapist, who took a completely different angle with me and rehabbed me back out of it. And my entire driving goal was to go on this elk hunt in September. I've been working at that for 2 years.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so I every Saturday, I train Monday through Friday. Saturday's a long ruck day. I'm going out and doing anywhere from 8 to 10 miles with a weighted 40, 50 pound pack. And then there's a spot about 2 hours from here called Table Rock that's 3,400 vertical feet, and it's just up.
Damn. And that's plenty.
Yeah, and I go hit that about every 4 or 5 weeks and just test myself against the previous 4 or 5 weeks. So I don't have money mountains around here, but I'm doing what I can to try to get ready.
That's plenty.
So I can hit it.
Yep. It's awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for being here, gents. It's been awesome.
Yep. No problem.
Appreciate you. And enjoy Summer Strong. That's going to be a blast.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go to that dinner Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
We're going to be putting on a display at the drinking and lifting competition on Friday night.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, man.